This episode of Reckley Pros Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. You want to get into the podcast game and you do not know how to, Anchor is the destination for you. It is free to sign up. It is accessible. It has all the tools you need to edit right from the site itself, whether you need sound effects, music, cutting and editing, uploading your clips right on, and upload uploading it right from the site. You can do it all from there. On top of that, you can distribute from all the major platforms for podcasting: Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. The list goes on. You can choose how many you want to as well. And on top of that, too, you can also start making money right away without any minimum listenership. So you can start doing ad reads like I'm doing right now. So what you're going to do today, you're going to go to anchor.fm, or you're going to download the Anchor app and get started making your own podcast today. Again, that is go to anchor.fm or download the Anchor app right away and get started making your podcast today. Let's roll right into the intro. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reckley Pros Podcast. If you guys haven't done so yet, please like, subscribe, comment, download on all and any platforms you listen on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, Anchor itself, whatever it may be. Please give it a listen, download, subscribe, comment, etc. Turn on the bell notification, whatever it may be, and just help me try and grow this thing, man. And I appreciate all the support so far I've had on my first 6 episodes. If you have not watched my most recent episode with Cam Stewart, please go ahead and listen. He's an old friend of mine from the Cape League. We both interned together, and great on-air personality for Fox 44 News out of Waco, Texas. So great conversation we had, and I hope you guys enjoy it and give it a listen. My next guest is none other than Mike Mcdevitt. If you guys have not heard of him, he was a big high school basketball phenom in the state of Maine. At a Greely High School, made some pretty deep high school playoff runs, played for Maine Athletic Club for AAU basketball, and played with guys like Zach Gilpin, Kyle Bouchard. The list goes on and on. But those are two big standout names that a lot of people know about. And, Maine's had some pretty incredible players, and I think his collegiate career was probably one of the better collegiate careers in the state, at a Division II level. And, he, played with guys, like I said, Dustin Cole and Justin Zukowski and Javon Pitts-Young, Matt Talbot, an insane class for, the class of 2014 for high school basketball. So they're just monster players. And for him to, I would say, have one of the more decorative college careers is an understatement, to say the least. But had a great 4-year career at Franklin Pierce University. Was a 1,000-point scorer. Made it to the conference tournament quite a few times, and had the opportunity to play with some really good players as well too at Pierce, like Brian Vilmont, Dante Gittins, Dorian Fattujatimi, who's another really good player as well too, Falou Sek, Matt Banton, a lot of really high level guys that probably could have gone Division I as well too. He got the opportunity to play with, was looked at as one of the go-to guys his senior year, was captain and so on. And when he graduated, got to have a little stint and played at at a couple different locations throughout Europe. I think France was one of them, which I think was his last stop. So he just called it quits on his professional basketball career, and is No, working full time now. He's just got a job back in March, and we'll hear a little bit more on that at the beginning as well too. But um, without further ado, though, episode 6, Rec League Pros podcast with Mike Mcdevitt. Let's roll right into it. What's going on, man?
What's going on? How you doing?
Living the dream, dude. Living the dream.
I feel you.
Yeah. So you working? What are you doing for work right now?
I started working at a software company.
Okay.
I'm just doing some like sales development for them right now.
Gotcha. How long have you been doing it
Started in March, so going on like 4-ish months.
for? Do you like it
Not
so
a bad.
far?
It's all right. It's not a bad setup. It's a good intro into sales, so I can't complain. I just talk to people all day.
Yeah. And it's not that big at all, you know. And then it's like, yeah, on top of that too, you're not keeping yourself like bored, just sitting at a computer the whole time. Like, you gotta lose
Yeah,
that some
exactly.
interaction. So,
Yeah.
but oh man, all right, I got a lot to talk about with you because considering that you and I are both from the beautiful state of vacation land in Maine.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
Growing up, to be honest, your last name is probably not like a household name for Maine high school basketball. You, yourself, your brother, and then your dad's the women's basketball coach for St. Joe's, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, walking into a gym as a kid, even in high school and in college, more people knew my dad than me or my brother. He's just known everywhere.
Yeah. And how long has he been doing it for? Is that quite a while,
He,
right?
yeah, so I think he started right out of college. He was like an assistant for the men's team for a bit. Then he was the women's coach and a couple other sports too. So he's been going, it's probably close to like 30, 35 years now.
Wow. So
Yeah.
he's been in the game for a while.
He's been around the block.
Oh yeah. Hey, you know, he's like the Greg Pop of Maine basketball.
Yeah. He's probably recruited a couple girls whose daughters are now at the age to be recruited at. So that's how long he's been doing it.
That's okay. That's
Might have
like,
some second generation players coming through.
which would kind of be cool, but at the same time, you're kind of like, oh my god, because then at the same time for you too, you're kind of like, shit, like I'm old now. I'm getting old now too.
No, I already know that I'm old now.
So did he kind of like get you into basketball, or is that just kind of like a natural thing?
Um, I mean, I guess it's kind of natural just growing up. Like our daycare was just bring us to the gym, let us run around, tell us not to get hit by a ball. So I mean, we all kind of just grew up at St. Joe's in the gym, just doing all that stuff. But really growing up, he wasn't he didn't really get involved with me or my brother for like coaching anything like that. If we wanted to shoot or something, he would rebound for us. But our mom was the one that was big on the coaching and stuff like that. Probably because she's more patient. And my dad probably would have got mad at us because we were crybabies back then. But but yeah, I mean, we just grew up at the gym, and it was just kind of a natural progression from that point.
Well, everyone's a crybaby at that age. Let's be honest. It's like, you know, something's not going your way, you're going to be upset about it. I've had a couple of those meltdowns myself at that age. So,
True. Took me a little bit too long to get out of that phase. Lasted until high school.
Yeah, I got to the point where I was probably playing baseball. I was like maybe like 10 or 11 years old, and then got to the point where my mom was like, "It's either you actually start like being like not a win, or like I'm cutting out of sports." So it's like,
yeah.
Then once like middle school hit, it was like I break my arm, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm fine.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need this one. I'll throw lefty. Whatever. I'm fine.
Um, so when did you like realize you were kind of the guy for Greely? Because I mean, I mean, you had a couple good players, but I mean, realistically speaking, you were probably like one of the best, one one of the best, if not the best players for your high school at least, and then right in the state
Yeah.
too, right?
Well, in the state, we had some hoopers all my years. We had some really good scholarship guys, but I mean, my freshman year, Coach Marks, who was my coach for 2 years, kind of pulled me and Bailey Train. He was another freshman that made varsity aside and was just like, "Hey, I need you guys to learn how things are done this year. You guys are kind of going to be leading this program in the future." So my freshman year, we had an all-state point guard, we had an all-conference center. So I was just kind of like taken back by like these guys are huge. Like our whole starting five was like 6'4", 6'5". I felt tiny for the first time in my life. But then sophomore year, we lost all that. We were just a scrappy team. There were a couple of great, like York was unreal that year. Falmouth was good. Yarmouth was good. So every game was just a gritty battle. But the seniors on that team were still like, it was just a wisdom thing. Like they had been playing for so much longer at that point. So it still wasn't like I felt like I was the guy on that team. I still felt like I was deferring. But then junior, senior year, I kind of grew into it. We realized that like we needed someone that could score, that could kind of hold the paint down. So I'd say probably like junior, senior years when I realized it. Probably if looking back at it, I would have smacked myself my sophomore year for not taking more advantage of that situation and trying to like take over more, and even freshman year really. But like, you know, you can always look back and say that stuff, but in the moment it was tough to like realize it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're always going to like kick yourself and like stuff that like you could have, should have done.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at your college career, and I didn't, I mean, I knew of you, like who you were in high school as like a basketball player. Like I knew you were good, but I think like your college career was, I would say, arguably in like individual performance wise, probably you had a better individual career in college than maybe you did in high school.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot more in college. Coach Chad kind of let me do a lot more. You know how it is. Growing up in Maine, if you're big, you just stay in the post and like
Yeah.
get fouls called for you, offenses, like stuff like that. But in college, Coach Chad worked with me a lot, made me shoot the ball more, would yell at me for like passing up a good shot. Like I'd never had a coach who was like telling me to be more selfish. It was
Mhm.
always trying to move the ball and all that stuff. So Chad would get mad at me if I wasn't, looking to score, be aggressive. So I definitely think my progression throughout college was a lot better. And honestly, I think the success that I had was a lot greater there than it was in high school, just because the talent we had was unreal. We honestly probably underperformed for how good we were, but I think college I definitely opened up my game a lot more.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well too. But I think the next thing I want to talk about is like your graduating class as a state, because it's like dumbfounding of like how like good you guys were. It's like there's you, there was, I remember Portland had, was it Javon Pitts Young,
Yep.
Matt Talbot,
Mm-hmm.
was it Justin Sikowski?
Yep.
That like those guys were animals. You had Tanner Highland was a year before you guys, but he was a monster. Same with your
Yep.
brother who played at, I think he played, ended up finishing his college career at Bentley,
Yep. Yeah, he played. I think it was 2 years at Bentley, maybe three. Still got 1,000 points.
right?
But
Yeah.
yeah, coming out of high school, that class was, we all kind of grew up playing on one of two teams, so we got real comfortable playing against each other. It would always be like state finals, whether us and them in AAU and stuff like that. But we had a really deep class. Hamden had two scholarship guys on it. I was a scholarship guy. Dustin was one of the best players to play in SMAA in 20 years. Like the stuff that he did was unreal. Portland had so much depth and so much talent. And then there were other guys just in random places. Like I know Wells had this kid, Jake Moody, who would put up 25 a night. It just,
Okay, he was good.
just random kids that were just getting buckets and stuff like that. So we had a real deep class.
Yeah, and then there was I know Sanford had a kid by the name of Ryan he was a 1,000-point guy too. Again, another year before he just like I would say from 2012 to 2014, like, there's just like I mean, and even like my graduating class too. I mean, there's some pretty good guys, but I mean, one stands out in particular, McDevitt, but I mean, if you look at like full overall talent, there was a lot of D2, high D, level D3 guys that were in your class. So it's crazy to think about. Now I want to talk about Dustin with you because I was actually trying to get him on with you, which I thought would have been cool, but I never got an answer from him. But I know he's a busy guy. He's engaged now.
Yeah.
You know, he's in like getting into the married life phase.
Yeah, he is.
But when did you like first meet him?
When did I first meet Dustin? Because Dustin's a quiet kid. Like
Yeah.
on the court, he's not gonna say a word to you. Doesn't matter what happens, he's just silent on the court. So I've known Dustin probably since we were in like third or fourth grade. He was always the short kid that we thought was younger than everyone, and he would just give everyone 25 a night. I didn't meet Dustin until probably like my junior, maybe end of my sophomore, start of my junior year. I was looking at different AAU teams, decided to play with them, met him a little bit because I know he had committed to Pierce, and I was like, all right, that's one of the schools I'm looking at. Might as well get a little rapport going with him. I know he's one of their high recruits, so I might as well like meet him, see what it's like. So I met him there. Still, like he takes a little while to open up to people. It's just he was always a quiet kid, but he's a sweetheart. And then of course, moving in freshman year at Pierce, living together, that's when we kind of became really close friends.
Right. Yeah, and that man, I remember him in high school and like I tell like my so I had a conversation about this with Tracy before he moved out because he was like he was like because Dustin actually lives down the road from me, and we were just talking about basketball and stuff like that. And he was like, I remember Dustin, yeah, and he was like, was he good? And I was like, I'm like, you're in like the state where he like. I had never seen a high school basketball kid in Maine be able to just absolutely break down a double team, break both their ankles, and knock down three. He played at our high school my freshman year at the quarterfinals of the state playoffs at the Expo. And we had a really good team that year. And we played him earlier in the regular season, lost by like 1 or 2 points. And he probably put up 30 points by the end of the game. And our season was done by half. It was incredible. He's just so freaking talented.
Yeah.
But
and the crowds that he would draw were crazy. He would get, because Bonnie Eagle's a big school, so he would get like on their rival games of if it was him versus Portland or him versus South Portland, you would have people showing up for like the freshman games just because they couldn't get a seat if they tried to get in at the start of his game. You would have people, pack gym for the JV game just so people could watch him. They had to move arenas so many times, like play at St. Joe's or play at the Expo just because everyone wanted to see Dustin. He was that good.
Right. And it was kind of, I always felt bad for him because he at all 4 years that he got to the Western Maine Finals and just couldn't get past
Never lost by more than 3 points.
And it was, that was the crazy part. It was
not,
I always felt bad for him, but I just like, he was just incredible to watch. And I just like, even like, we have I don't know if you guys ever did the summer basketball tournaments in Providence that they do for high
Oh
school.
yeah, I know that he was always Providence camp. I know Bonnie Eagle and Falmouth would always go to that, and they would duke it out in the finals every year. But we went to the UNH camp. We couldn't be taking that trip.
Yeah, Marshwood did it too. There were a couple of main schools that did it, and then there's like a bunch of Mass schools, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Always seem to be like the main high school teams, like at least the better ones, were always like making like a deep layup, like a deep run in the tournament, which was crazy.
Yeah.
So, you played. So what was the AAU team you played for? MD Nation then?
No, that was Dustin's team. I played for a team up in Nokomis. It was Maine Mac, so the Maine Athletic Club. It was,
Okay.
pretty local guys up there, and then they sprinkled in a couple Southern guys. So it was mostly like Hamden, Camerton, Rockport, like Holton, smaller towns up there. That's where we pretty much pulled our guys from. It was a nice 2-hour drive, 3 days a week for practice.
And that's cool. So who'd you play with then for that team?
It was me, Zach Gilpin,
Okay.
yeah, Cam Scott, Kyle Bouchard was a scholarship guy
Benton, right?
at Bentley. Yeah, we had
Gilpin was too, right?
Yep, Gilp was at Bentley too. He reclassified, went to prep school, but he was a scholarship guy too. We had one of my buddies from Falmouth, Justin Rogers. He was on the team. Another Hamden guy, Cam Scott. He was a good player. He played at USM too. We had a pretty solid team, and we had played together forever, so the chemistry was there too, which helped us in all those bigger national wide tournaments.
So did you play with Mayo then there too? Because he played for, I think that.
Yeah,
too.
I never really did. He wasn't, he never really like took off until after I was gone. So he had his huge year my senior year. That's like kind of when like he grew a ton. I think he was like 6'4" up until that point. Wasn't even like the best player on his team, or at least like the coach didn't see it that way. And then like my senior year grew a ton, got very athletic. I don't know if he started lifting, doing something, but like got very athletic. He took off within like a year and a half from being a D3 type guy, 6'4", big, to a 6'9" man, and just dominating people.
Oh yeah.
His stock exploded real quick.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know who he was until all of a sudden there was a big article that came out of like him signing with EKU, and it's like,
Yeah.
I was like, who is this kid? And it's like, wait, and I like me being like in Faith Maine, which is like right on the state line. It's like, where is Messalonski? I was like, looking at him too, and you just see like the Friday night highlights they do, on the news, and you'd see them do like a package on Messalonski where it's like they're playing like on that like really old gym floor that's not even hardwood. Yeah, so that to me was like crazy to think about, like a kid from like that far up, just like you forget about all the towns that are up there, to see a kid just transform himself, go to decent mid-major D1 school, and become the all-time leading scorer at EKU.
Yeah, and now he just led Japan's best league in scoring last year, so he's gonna be, he's gonna have a long pro career ahead of him for sure.
If I would hope at some point he kind of gets he got a shot in the summer league one. What was it right when he graduated? And he didn't. He didn't get drafted or anything. Which is like it's kind of expected. It's tough to be. It's tough to get in that draft, and there's only 50 60 plus picks or whatever. So so getting there is like it's definitely a challenge. But yeah, he's killing it. But So why? So that. So kind of back on top of you. Then why Franklin Pierce though?
Honestly, it was that or prep school. I didn't really have any offers coming out. I had Worcester Academy has this like main scholarship they give to one kid who's going to be playing basketball for him. So I could have gone there or I could have gone to Pierce. The years leading up to my year were big years for the NE10 with big guys. So, Stonehill had one of their best big men ever. The recruiting class before me. Bentley had Tyler McFarland, who's a 2,000 point, 1,000 rebound guy. St. Mike's had 2 7-foot guys. Like it was just a really stacked year of big. So no one really had a need for it. So I could have gone the prep route, taken a chance on myself to, play well and stuff like that, try and get something else. Or I could just go to Pierce. They had the degrees I was looking for. I knew I could trust Chad to be a good coach, tell it to me straight. And, ultimately that's kind of the route I took.
And I think telling it straight is kind of an understatement with him. He's a kick of fire in you for sure. He's a scary guy when he gets going.
Yeah, but I mean, I love that in him. I'd rather have that than, a coach that sugarcoats everything, tells you, I'm gonna play you next game, and then you never play. Like Chad told it to you straight. If you were gonna work hard and like put your nose to the ground and just bust your butt every day, he was gonna find a way to get you in a game, and then it's just up to you. I mean, college basketball isn't about participation. Like you can work as hard as you possibly can. If you're just not skilled enough, sometimes it's tough pill to swallow, but it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always kind of is there's more successful coaches that were at Pierce, because there's still a sense of like the whole participation thing. At some degree, when you get to like smaller colleges like ours, I always respected him. I would say Jason King when he was still the baseball coach, and a couple other coaches too that were just like no, it was based on your talent and your work ethic. And if you had it, if you had both, you were cleared. But sometimes you had to work for a lot of the stuff that you wanted to get. It wasn't a, hey, I'm going to have this because, this is my last name or I'm the number one recruit. It's not how it works all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I really respected him in that sense. I think he molded a lot. I mean, look what he did with you, man. It was like, you were good in high school, but you took it out the whole other notch to the point where you were the guy your senior year. At least in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had a lot to do with that. He spent a lot of time with me. A lot of it's just teaching how to keep yourself in, how to not foul, stupid stuff like that like sounds so simple now, but like back then you just don't know. And I give him a lot of credit for that. And honestly, I probably could have even learned more from him. Probably in the moments, I was probably pissed at him for saying something and didn't listen to something. But like the lessons that he taught me, I use every single day. He was without a doubt favorite coach I've ever had. Taught me the most stuff. I still try and golf with him every week or two down here since he's living in Wells. So
right.
Try and beat him at golf every now and then. Still haven't, but one day.
That's awesome. What was your favorite year playing then, while you were there?
Oh, my favorite year had to be my junior year. I mean, like senior year is tough to compare because like that's your going out tour, like your recruiting class is all there with you, but it had to be my junior year. We had the most talent that we'd had in a while. We were playing really well. Everything like that. I had Dustin, other roommate Ben. We had a great situation there too. It was without a doubt junior year was kind of where I feel like I took that next step too. So that was the most fun year.
Yeah, I mean, I think your team itself too. I mean, you had a good group of guys as well too. Like, Dante, yourself. I mean Jordan, I think just was eligible to play like kind of midway through the year, if I remember. He had Falou as a freshman, and yeah, Sante, Lowe. Yeah, a bunch of guys on that team.
Yeah, and I mean Matt Benton was coming off the bench and he would still average like 18 a game
Oh,
on
I forgot about Matt.
20 minutes. Like he was just instant energy, instant buckets. There were games where we would be down 20 points with 5 minutes left, and Matt would come in and hit 4 threes in a row, get 2 steals, 2 layups, and we're right back in it. Like he just found ways to score.
Yeah, he was scoring machine. He was like your six man. He was like your Moody Williams
Yeah, he
of your
was.
team, like
He
legit.
really was.
What was it like? What was it like playing with Dante? Because Dante was an interesting player too. Because he was like kind of reminds me like if we're talking like an NBA comparison type thing, like not to the extent of like strength and size, obviously, but like he kind of had this style of him of like Giannis, where he was like super tall, he could make plays,
Mm-hmm.
and he could shoot a little bit, but he was more of like I'd rather distribute, get everyone involved. And,
Yeah. It
kind
was
of
definitely fun. I mean, it's always a blast when you can just throw the ball anywhere near the rim and know that Dante's just going to catch it.
right.
It made my life so easy. All I had to do was just set a flat screen for him at the top of the key, let him get a full head of steam, and he's either going to get double teamed and I'll have a three, or he's going to have a layup. Like it made the game really easy. He's just the kind of player that demands attention, so it makes everything else for everyone else so much easier. Um, I don't think I've ever played with someone that's that athletically gifted or just like could do the things that he did. And I mean, there are half the memories that I remember from college basketball are just him putting someone on a poster or doing something crazy.
Yeah, a couple of them too. They had like one insane dunk I remember where it was like complete poster where like if we had some more if like we ever had recognition to the extent like some other schools like it could have been a top 10 play at the least. I don't remember who they played, but it was like to the point where it looked like he was just bringing it back, just banging it down. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Um, so all right, I want you then. So since we're on that topic, who would you say were high school and college? I would say included. Who would you say are your top five players you played with all time?
All time players I've played with. I'm going to throw men's league in that one too, because I play with Keegan Highland a lot in men's league. He's
Oh, okay.
definitely, I mean, playing with, he's probably the best I've played with in that instance. Um, but then after that, I don't know. You weren't there. He was a senior my freshman year. His name's Ryan Vilmont. He was the best shooter I ever played with. He was like 60% on the year or something, or like average 6 threes a game or something crazy. He was just lights out. He would get so hot, and he was like 6'5", so he was tough to guard for a forward or anything. Keegan, um, Ryan, I got to put Dante in there because he's so difficult to guard too. Um, I mean, I got to put high school Dustin in there. I played with him in high school. I mean, 2,000 points or close to 2,000 in high school. He's crazy good. And then I don't think people understand how good Zach Gilpin was when he was in high school too. He was 6'4", athletic, handled the ball so well, and he was quick as hell. So he was definitely one of the best that I played with too.
Yeah, that's an interesting mix. More than I didn't think of. I didn't think of Keegan because I didn't even realize who played
Yeah,
men's
no,
league
I play with him
basketball.
a good amount now. He's not a fun one to guard, and we're like two of the guys that are like in decent shape right now, so I always have to guard him. He just kills me because he's the kind of guy who could be out of shape, but his mindset won't let him slow down. Like he'll just keep running and running, so it's the worst to have to guard him, but it's a good person to kind of model a game after for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean him. Who else would have been a tough guard for you in high school? Because so Greely was what, a Class B school?
Yeah, we were Class B. So we played like Falmouth, Yarmouth, Cape. There weren't really like guys that were that great. They were like athletic big guys, but no one really that was like super difficult to guard or anything like that. It was mostly guards back then.
Yeah, the only one that comes to mind for me is probably Jack Simons.
Yeah, Jack was good back then.
Uh,
He's so crafty.
yeah, I mean, Falmouth always said it. They had a weird setup too, because they would play. I don't know if this was like towards the end of your senior year or not, but I know like when, I was a senior, so Falmouth for like all their sports would play a Class B schedule, and
And then
then
A playoffs, yeah.
as
It
such
was
like
it was a really weird setup. I don't know why it was set up like that, but
yeah,
that's just how they did it.
yeah, and now you look at the setup of like how high school sports work in general in the state, and it's like I don't even know where some schools are like ranking wise. Are they? So you have that Class AA or Double A, whatever you want to call it, which
Mm-hmm.
is like your top populated schools. You have Class A, Class B. I think you have like a couple others too. They got rid of some. Everyone's always moving around too, so I never keep up with like who's where anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough. They keep changing it, but I mean, good players will find themselves at any school. It doesn't really matter conferences and that stuff. Everyone plays each other all the time in the summer, anyways.
Right. Now, getting on the topic, now back to your family stuff. So obviously, your dad was a coach in college. Your brother's also a pretty good player himself too. So, does he play, or has he graduated yet, or is he still at? Was it Endicott?
Yeah,
Where he goes?
so this was his senior year at Endicott this past year. So unfortunately, didn't really get to play a ton, just because of COVID and all that stuff. So he's trying to go back for a fifth year. Still not sure about it, but yeah, he arguably had a better high school career. Not arguably, he had a better high school career without a doubt than me. He
Mm-hmm.
won Mr. Basketball, won one state championship for basketball his senior year. Got 1,000 points in 3 years, which is crazy. So yeah, he's definitely a better offensive player than me.
Mm-hmm. Uh, do you guys ever go at it once in a great while?
Never. Our dad won't let us.
Really?
It would end in a fight. We're just two competitive people that like know how to piss each other off. Like just years and years of building up ammo that we could use on each other.
Right.
And it would just turn into I would foul him hard. He would take my legs out on a layup. It would end up into a fight. It would be a decent matchup, but I'm pretty sure I would win that one.
Well, I think you got more. You got the bigger build, right?
Yeah, it depends how many dribbles we get. If it's like 3 dribble winning, if he gets all those once, then I might just get lazy and let him shoot threes.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, if you're doing one-on-one, you got to.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that's like normal,
like,
unless it's like random schools do unlimited, but that's stupid.
yeah, oh yeah, because then you're just sitting there watching someone do like 7 hessies up at the top of the key, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, no, it's got to be 3 dribbles or nothing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think. Yeah, I would like to think you would probably take it because yeah, you got the big bro mentality. So, but
He gets hot though. If someone starts to talk shit to him, it's a switch flips in his head, and he'll turn it to another gear. So it wouldn't shock me if he pulled it out, but I would keep playing until I won.
um, so after you graduated 2018 from Pierce, so you went to play. You went and played professional, right?
Yeah, so I did my first year, I was in Sweden. And then the year after that, I was in Albania for a year. And then this past year, I was in France for about five-ish months playing there too.
So what was that like experience wise?
Um, it's definitely not as glamorous as people might think. I mean, like you think of professional basketball, you think the NBA, but in some of these places, it's just like basketball's not as big. There's not a ton of money into it. The league might not be the best. Um, it's a lot of downtime that you're just kind of chilling. Because like if you're in a country that a lot of people don't speak English, it's tough to like interact with random people and meet new people. But luckily, the last 2 years, I had some American teammates, people that like spoke good enough English, so I got to get around, explore all these places, and it was an amazing experience in all the places that I went to.
Well, that was always the curious thing I had about the like playing professional basketball out of college. If it's not obviously like the NBA or like some of the bigger like pro leagues overseas, like the Australian, Czech, CBA, so on. Because like you're like leagues in Europe kind of try to replicate in a sense how soccer works, where it's like they have all these leagues and they're just trying to work their way up, but they kind of you can't really incorporate it the same way because it's like there is no Premier League, so you're not really having teams like necessarily moving up. So I was kind of curious of that, like in the sense of like what like is it worth sometimes doing it depending on the league you're in or not, but
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely like no matter what, if you got a good setup, you're gonna have fun.
mm-hmm.
If you've got a good organization and you know that your money's gonna get paid on time, you got good teammates, there's no drama with coaches and stuff like that. It's gonna be a blast. The way it works is pretty much like soccer. It's relegation and stuff like that. The bottom team always kind of gets kicked to the second league. Top team moves up the league. Um, and then there are some leagues that kind of go inter country wise. So there's the Euro League, which is like all the biggest name teams, a lot of like ex NBA guys playing that one, all the way down to like some smaller ones that are just kind of like two or three countries. But it's definitely like it depends on the situation that you get put in, but it's a lot of fun no matter what.
So um, did you were there was there any point in time where you had any situations where you were like sketched out then?
Oh, all the time. So I was living in Albania. This was 20 like before COVID hit, but it was COVID's year, and we got hit with like a magnitude 6 or 7 earthquake or something like that. And in Albania, all the buildings are kind of just like brick and cement. It's not like there's not the best structure there. So stuff's falling over in our apartment, like cabinets smashing, stuff like that. We leave the house, there's a building down the block that's like crumbling. And I was like, the hell did I get myself into? It went on for like 4 or 5 days. So we like had to get out of the city and go to the capital and to like a hotel and stuff like that. But it was definitely sketchy there for that. And then of course when COVID hit, like we were allowed to leave because we only could eat at a restaurant. So like we had these passes or whatever. So if the military police stopped us, we could get by. But it was like a ghost town. Like you wouldn't see a soul. There was no one outside, no nothing. Like we didn't know what was going on. It was kind of crazy.
So that must have been. I didn't even think of it that like you being there during the pandemic. So that
Yeah.
must have been that must have been 10 times harder.
Yeah. So we were texting like all the other Americans, like you might not know guys personally, but everyone kind of follows each other on Instagram at that point. Like you just find each other through different connections or whatever. So I was texting guys from everywhere on the league, like, yo, what's going on with your team? What are you hearing on your end? Because like in these countries, a lot of the time it's like the top of the league and presidents and that stuff make all the decisions and then don't tell other people stuff. So we like kind of forced our president and like all the presidents in the league's hands. We were just like, hey, they're sending their Americans home. What's the deal with us? The other team sending their Americans home. What's the deal with us? Like, can we go home? What's going on? And at the end of it, he was just like, all right, I bought you guys tickets. You're flying out in 2 days. Pack your stuff. You're out. So it was definitely a stressful couple of days, but we were allowed to go to the grocery store. So we just stocked up on whiskey and beer and just kind of lived our best life chilling.
The only essentials you need for 2
100%.
days.
Yep.
You know, just a full bender before you leave, and then you're locked in your own family home for the next
Exactly.
however
It
long.
was, I think I had to stay inside for, I don't think I left the house for a solid 2 weeks. It was tough.
Yeah, I mean, I was still out and about. I was lucky enough that I was able to work because selling alcohol is an essential business.
Of course it is.
You know, yeah, you got to make sure you get everything in for all the alcoholics, and you know, everyone needs their fix, man. Everyone needs a good bottle of Tito's and Jim Beam.
Oh, 100%. That will always be essential.
So, do you think you're going to end up going back then to try another year pro, or you think?
No,
you know,
I think I'm done now. You know, once you kind of give up the mindset of going over, it's kind of tough to get back into it. Like, my workout partner was Nick Canner Medley, who played at Maryland, one of probably the best basketball player to ever come out of Maine. So we would be at the track at like 6, doing track stuff, then hit the gym, then hit the weight rooms, leave at like 11. Like once you kind of get out of that routine, trying to get back into it would be tough. Like I know I could, but I like the job I'm at now. I'm liking kind of having that free time, like having the routine, not stressing about where I'm going to be going or what the situation I'm in is. I'm liking it, kind of taking the downtime.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you. The only thing I always find to be like hard that it seems like for a lot of people, especially yourself, since you've got the opportunity to play professional basketball, it's like when is it time to walk away sometimes? And I don't think like even some people like college wise, like I still don't think it's sunk in for a lot of them yet. And they still like to kind of live in that mentality, and it messes with people sometimes because it's a chunk of your life that you're just kind of like taking away.
Yeah, and luckily like stuff's starting to open back up, like gyms and runs are starting to get back in, and I think the part that I had been missing is just that competitiveness, like that aspect of like I just want to win. So I threw myself into golf, been playing a ton of that with my buddies. That brings the competitive juices out. Starting to get some 5-on-5 runs, that'll help. But I mean, it's the same as personality, just addictive when it comes to this stuff. So just trying to get as much hoops in as I can when I'm not working. It's just a fun thing that I do at this point.
I don't blame you at all with that. So like this point now you're kind of removed and so on, and I feel like now we're obviously in the era of social media, and I think for the time we were in high school, there wasn't a whole lot of. I mean, social media was a thing, but not to the extent it is now. Like you kind of just knew people through, like you just read news articles and kind of like maybe find some stuff on Twitter here and there. But like Instagram really wasn't a thing until kind of like after we were out of high school and so on. But now it's like, I feel like the talent level for the state itself on a basketball level it's kind of just grown more and more. There's kind of a sin I felt like it's kind of flat, but I've just been noticing like a lot more guys getting the opportunity to get some looks at some like, decent schools and so on. There's something I saw the other day. A kid, I forget, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He went to Wayne Fleet, and now he's
Dom Campbell. He's
yes,
Phillips Exeter kid. Yeah.
yeah,
He's gonna be probably go to Stanford or something like that.
yeah,
He's crazy. He's very good. I think social media definitely plays a part in it because it's one thing to hear about a scouting report of 6'7" dude who's athletic but plays in Maine. So then you think, all right, is he athletic for Maine or is he athletic versus these other guys? So when you can put film to it and mixtapes are getting made for like every tournament, all this stuff, people are just getting more and more exposure. For a state like Maine, who just is kind of isolated, D1 coaches aren't making the trip up here to watch a tournament, but like if they have the time to like watch all the mixtapes from these tournaments and stuff like that, like it's just more and more exposure these kids are getting, then I mean that's always going to help because Maine's definitely had the talent. Like most of the guys that played in the NE10 probably could have played for like an America East team. There have been other guys like McFarland probably could have played at a good like Ivy League school or something like that. Keegan got an offer from Gonzaga, so he was clearly a mid-major um, to lower high major type guy if he got all the exposure that people now are getting. So I mean, it's great for Maine. I wish it was there when we were playing for sure, but like it's great for the kids now.
yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the whole thing about like how stuff can grow. And I think that's the best way of saying it because it's like, yeah, you're right. I think there's always been talent in the state. I mean, it clearly has. I mean, if you look at some of the guys, throughout the years, like Keegan's a prime example. I think Nick's a prime example as well too. And then you're seeing these kids now, and so on that are getting the nods and getting looks. And it all has to do with the fact where coaches can have access now to seeing like where these kids stand, at a skill level wise, rather than just like, okay, I got to drive, 3.5 hours per se if you're in American school, sometimes even more, all the way up to like, Caribou or whatever to go watch a kid that, you're not even 100% sure of yet. But
Yeah, and it's with COVID and stuff, all these games are getting live streamed. So back when I was playing, a coach could only watch one game, maybe two, but only really pay attention to one. But now since they're live streamed, you can have all your assistants watching. Like you can watch every game at a tournament if you wanted to. So the players aren't really slipping through cracks anymore. Like if they're skilled and they can compete, they're gonna get identified and they're gonna get their shot for it.
so then, with that being said, though, do you think there's any guys right now that are, I don't know how well you know any talent right now in the state, but do you feel like there's a guy or a couple that are maybe under the radar right now that people don't know about?
There are definitely some dudes that are good players. I think it's tough to be kind of under the radar because Maine's still like the skill level's not that great. I know there's a couple guys that play for Middlesex Magic. I think one's from like York. He's a pretty good player, pretty tall, good shooter. There's a kid from Nokomis, gonna be a freshman. He's like 6'8". He's already ranked in the top 5 for the country. He's gonna be a stud. He's probably gonna leave Maine. I mean, I would go to like Mass, to a prep school, Florida, Texas, something like that. Get beat up against better competition, but like still show that you're that good, and then he'll probably be like a ACC type guy. So there are definitely some good players coming up in Maine. It's we're definitely catching up to the rest of New England.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seemed like at the time growing up, it was always like the highly talked about guys were coming out of like Mass, just because that's where like the whole prep schools were. Like I remember, what was it, like my freshman year of high school? Um, and I know this isn't a Mass prep school, but Tilton had
They were
just
nasty.
Yeah, they had George Niang, Maryland Stowell. Maryland Stowell was like looked at as like what Joel Embiid was before Joel Embiid, and then um, they had Wayne Selden who went to Kansas. They had a kid. They had a point guard that was playing for. Ended up going to Mizzou. I don't know what happened to him though. And they had like a couple other guys too that kind of.
Yeah, there are a lot of like those New England Mass teams who all five guys are Power 5 conference players. The fifth man off the bench is going to be a mid-major. Like a lot of those prep schools were like the spot to go. They were all competing against Brewster.
Well, there's a kid that I kind of grew up playing against most like 9 to like 13 because Marshwood played since we were right on the state line. We would go and play a lot of teams in New Hampshire. So I used to play like Portsmouth all the time, Exeter, Dover, Somersworth, all those schools, as well as like some of like the Southern Maine teams. And there's this, you may know and you may not know Brett Hansen. Does that name sound familiar to you?
No, I don't know the name, but I'm sure. I mean, New Hampshire had some good dudes too back then.
So he was, I think, from Deerfield, New Hampshire. He went to high school at Manchester Central for 2 years. He won a state championship as a sophomore, and then transferred to Tilton and played with Terrence Mann for a couple of years before Terrence graduated. And he was phenomenal. He got a lot of good looks at some D1 schools and was ranked and everything, but he ultimately went to Florida Southern.
So he had a career down there probably because they ran Division II for a while.
Oh, not just a career, man. He was D2 National Player of the Year. Because he ended up reclassifying. The kid, I always remember him being super good, but like not like wow. And then this was like just before he got the award in 2020 because he got to play extra years reclassified.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that and it was like, oh, Brett Hansen National Basketball Player of the Year. It's like, oh my God, it's like, what's going on? It's like, and it's just like kind of speaks volumes to like just like how, sometimes like they're like I'm surprised at how many D2 guys could probably play at a high level like Division One. And I mean, like some people made it known as well too. Like who's one that Ben Wallace from the Detroit Pistons. He's a D2 basketball player and had a pretty good NBA career. I mean, he won a championship with Detroit. He was an All-Star. So sometimes there's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people understand how it's kind of like intertwined. Like it's not all Division One is the Division One you see on TV. Like if you're a top Division II team or in a top Division II league, you're probably better than most of the low Division Ones and like could probably compete against some of the mid majors. And it goes the same for like Division III. If you're like a NESCAC school or like a really good Division III program, you can compete against a lot of the like lower Division II schools. Like there's really not that big of gaps as people think. It's pretty intertwined in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's I think for like every level of sports too. Is like there's always going to be like kind of a gap that kind of makes a leap in a sense of like this team at this level can compete with this team at this level. There's not really much of a gap at all because sometimes their best player is as good as like their best too. So the last thing we'll kind of discuss, and then I'll get you out of here. Talk a little bit of the finals a little bit. What were your thoughts on it, and who did you want to win?
I wanted the Suns, honestly. I love DeAndre Ayton. I think he's a stud. I wanted Chris Paul to get his ring because I think he's busted his ass and turned enough franchises around. And I hated the rep that he got in Houston. Like, I know he's abrasive and people see him on TV and they think he's a dick, but like, he turned around OKC. They wanted to suck last year, and the man carried them to the playoffs. Like, they got rid of him because they wanted better draft picks. So they just offloaded him because they wanted to suck, and he just wouldn't let them be bad. He goes to the Suns, a team that was like below 500 last year, and he brings them to the second place or top. No, they were second in the Western Conference or something like that. Like, I thought he just played out of his mind. He's such a good leader, and he's hard on guys, but you can tell when it's like people that want to work and want to learn, he brings the best out of them, which is probably why it didn't work out with him and James Harden. James just kind of wants to score, it looks like. But I'm happy for Giannis. That's definitely like it says something that he stuck it out with a city and he kind of stuck to his word. I remember his first season when he was successful, people were already asking him like, hey, you going to get out of here soon? Are you going to go to a big market? And he's like, no, I love Milwaukee. People are nice here. I'm going to sign a max extension or something. So to see him kind of do what LeBron did and bring a city a championship without having to leave, kind of unlike LeBron, I kind of love that. I hope we see more of that loyalty in the NBA. So it's more like franchises building for something instead of just players jumping around. So, I thought it was a pretty decent series, but I wanted the Suns for sure.
Yeah, I gotta say I agree with you too. So I've always liked Chris Paul for a long time. I know, yeah, it's like kind of nailed on the head. It's like he's abrasive. He's kind of a hothead in a sense too, and he kind of has that. Not to the extent of LeBron, where like he's just like whining about every call, but he has his arguments here and there. But it's like I would have loved to have seen him at least get one. But I mean, it's tough when you have a guy that's 7 feet tall who can just do whatever he wants at will and just draw a foul at will. Like Giannis had like 17 free throws last night. He hit 16 of them, which I was like,
is crazy.
Yeah, because he was missing everything the first 3 games, which was like I was like, okay, this is. If he has to go to free throw line that many times, I doubt that he's going to get more than maybe 50% of those to go in.
Yeah, which is a testament to him because it's not an easy thing to like get out of your own head at the free throw line too. Like it's like a baseball player that's in a slump. Like it's a tough thing to work out of. You kind of you got to go that stuff. So that was impressive that you could do that too.
Oh yeah, it's so interesting because he is more, I think, dominant than LeBron was at his age, and he can shoot the ball a little bit, but it's all dominating force and pain. It's just like it's crazy to think about like where he was when he got drafted to like now, because he was like when he got drafted, he's this little like twig of a guy, and now he's just like you need like 3 guys to just like take him down because he's so strong and like
Yeah.
crafty inside. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So
He's a hell of a player for sure.
Oh yeah. So do you think this is like the floodgates are open now, where he could go get a couple more, or is that no? You don't think so?
I don't think anyone is gonna be, with how good of players there are in both conferences now. Like, it was one thing when like it was just them versus the Sixers, and you knew like, all right, one of those two teams is going to the finals. But now you look at it and the Nets are good, Celtics are good, Heat's good. So like the Eastern Conference, no one's walking through to the Eastern Conference Finals and like resting while the West is killing each other. So anytime that there's that kind of competition, I don't think it's going to be like an easy route for anyone. So I don't know. If they can win a couple, I'll be impressed, because that's tough. But I think the West is probably going to have something next year for them. I think some of those teams are going to make some moves, or the Nets will get it done or something like that. But
Yeah,
it's tough to repeat for anything.
Yeah, I don't know about repeating, but like, yeah, I agree with you in the sense of like they're probably not going to win another title next year. It'll probably be down the road at some point, just how everything pans out. But it's like the interesting thing to me was like everyone's like, oh, we're going to run it back next year for like both these teams. And I'm like, you got to understand something. Like most, like if you look at, besides Milwaukee, if you look at Phoenix, Atlanta, New York, some of these teams, like the like 4 teams that were in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals last year, right? All were bounced, like early in the playoffs, you know.
Yeah.
Because they played until October, and then like, you know, they were off for like
it was a weird year for sure. Yeah. So, absolutely. And you got to think like injuries can screw anyone, and that's not something you prepare for. Like, if Giannis's knee was worse than everyone thought, then they don't win that championship. Right. Or like if AD doesn't get hurt again, maybe they win that series. Like there's so much of injuries that can play into it. Like if Kawhi doesn't get hurt, maybe they win that series. You never know. Injuries are just so strange and random.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's it's the vicious cycle of like how the NBA works. It's always, you can always expect an ACL tear here and there, which is like, it's sad to say, but it's the harsh reality. So
yeah, unfortunately.
But I'm going to wrap it up here. So Mike, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's good to see it. Other than being out in Portland once in a while, having a couple too many drinks, but we'll eventually, I'm sure we'll run into each other at bonfires at some point.
I'm sure we will.
But again, man, thanks for coming on, and to everyone listening too. Appreciate all the love and support. This has been episode 6 now of Directly Pros. Take care, everyone.